One is that I think it will mar the beauty of the harbor. I think that is one of our biggest assets for the harbor. I do a lot of volunteer work at the visitor center, and the people just love going down to the harbor and looking at our magnificent view. The other thing is I'm against it because I think it's just going to generate a lot more trash. Whenever I take visitors to the Dog Bar breakwater, there are people fishing on that breakwater all the time. And if you look in the nooks and crannies of all the stones, the rocks, the pier, all you see is trash, 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 trash. There's trash floating in the water, plastic bottles, everything, all around the Dog Bar breakwater. I'm a trash picker-upper. I pick up on a daily basis, just as an aside, probably 2 shopping bags of plastics and bottles every day, cleaning the streets of Gloucester. So, I mean, unfortunately, it is the people that live here that don't take care of their own city. The thing is, and I think it would also generate a lot of tourism trash. The other thing is that I think there's too much going on in the harbor already. We have some statues, we have flags, we have gardens. I think it's going to be just too cluttered. It is going to interfere with the beauty. I think the harbor is our jewel in the crown, and we should just leave it alone. I think there are plenty other places that would be well suited for a fishing pier. I don't think our harbor is one of them, and I hope you vote against it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Roberts?
My name is Sunny Robinson. I live at 20 Harvard Street, and I'd like to speak to this proposal without speaking either in favor of it or in opposition to it, but to raise some issues in relationship to it. I have no objection to a fishing pier, an additional fishing pier, an additional fishing site in the city of Gloucester. I think it's definitely an asset that, in fact, it would be handicap accessible. That would make it a real draw. But I think there's some very serious problems associated with the location of this particular proposal that we should look at. So from my perspective, the goal ought to be to try to get the fish pier, especially if it comes without at least construction costs to the city. But we need to take, even though I hear there's been some looking at the harbor, I think we need to take a much bigger, broader, and more careful look at other possibilities in the city. Central to that is a very key point that prior speaker Denise Foley spoke to. We have, and just this week, a National Climate Change Challenge report in front of us that speaks to not just rising sea levels, but sea levels that have already risen, are rising faster than they were anticipated to be. Today's report, which maybe you didn't hear because you were coming to council, is that those predictions are 8 to 13 feet rise in sea level projected over the next decade. Much more, much faster than anticipated. The siting for this proposal is in a place that already gets blasted by winter storms, huge waves coming up over the seawall, undermining the seawall as we know, throwing up huge amounts of rock. Doesn't make any sense to me to build a fishing pier in that location. May not be with our city tax dollars, but it sure is with my state tax dollars, and I don't believe it's a good location for what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is worthwhile to see if in fact there is a place to put it. I think another big issue is the parking. You know, that's not far from where I live in town. It's where I walk. People come to Stage Fort Park. Parking is already at a premium all along the boulevard during the entire summer. And to encourage any more in an already congested area, I don't think is a very wise idea at all. The other thing that I think is really important is I don't think we should be doing anything in that general location until we get the seawall taken care of. Not one dime for other harbor structures in that area ought to be spent until we get the seawall taken care of. Now I know we say that money is coming and it's going to happen. I've been hearing that for 10 years. Okay? We need to take care of the seawall, or we're going to lose a huge amount of public access that is already very valued. And when we build a fish pier, we ought to build it first and foremost for the residents of this city and not be trying to do one more thing to attract tourism, when in fact, by the section on the east side or the north side of the cut, where there is currently a bump out, used to be a major fishing place for kids and people of this community. It's closed off because of the dangerousness of the seawall in that section. So, fish piers, terrific. First and foremost for the residents of the city, not in that location, and get the seawall repaired before we go doing anything else in that general area. Thank you for your attention.
The comments are usually 15 minutes. Are there any communications? I know there was a motion for a petition. Is there anything further?
The only communication was the petition that Ollie referred to previously.
We'll get back to that in the rebuttal. Okay. So now the proponents have 5 minutes to rebut any arguments that were brought forward in the counter argument. If you wish to.
The point of order would be, as I'm showing the support for our project, and only ask for opposition.
You already used up much of your time. More people will be allowed. At this point, we're going to do the rebuttal as well. If there's people who still wish to speak at that point, I'll allow it.
In terms of it being a risky,
Again, Ralph Pino, 56 Yale County Road, Chairman of the Waterways Board. In terms of being a risky spot, the state has reviewed the project. They are going to engineer a pier which will be safe and sound. And if they can't do it, they won't build it. When we looked out on the fort in a couple of areas, they could not do it because it was unsafe and there was too much wave action to allow that to happen. In saying that a fish pier is a good thing to have, but it should go someplace else, it really is no other place to go. We've looked every place in this harbor, and there really is no place else to go. In terms of the seawall, this is a completely different funding source than the seaport bond money that has already been approved to the Boulevard. The money in this program cannot be used for any kind of use on the Boulevard. In talking about the parking, the only parking that is being required are 2 handicapped marked spaces relatively close on the street to the fishing pier, and no other really dedicated parking is required. And we are a fishing community, and there is virtually no other legal place in the harbor where one can fish without trespassing onto the bait factory or someone else's property. On the other side of the canal, which is closed to fishing, it may be closed now because of it's unsafe, but it was closed before that with no fishing signs, I assume because it was unsafe for kids to cast while people were walking behind them. And if Mr. Cameron could maybe speak on the safety and the appropriateness of the site.
One of the reasons we like this particular site is because we saw an opportunity to extend a structure out beyond the existing seawall that's there currently. I know that's an active area for walkers and tourists to view the harbor, and this would get the fishermen off the sidewalk or the pedestrian area out over the water where it would be safe. The fishing pier would be for fishing access only. No other types of uses could take place out there. If there are other problems out on the pier, people out there just causing trouble and making noise, it's against our regulations, and law enforcement officials can go in and remove the parties that are problematic. So those are a couple of features that enhance the conditions down there and protect against, misuse of the pier itself.
Further rebuttal? I do. Those who have already spoken have up to 5 minutes to counter the rebuttal, and we'll take testimony from those in favor and those opposed. If you wish to, you don't have to. They have 5 minutes, they can divide it anyway they want. No one? Okay, then I will, I'll allow,
So people in favor can speak now, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I'm just waiting to make sure that they get their chance to rebut first. It looks like that's going, gone. All right, now, we'll alternate those in favor and those opposed. If you're in favor, if you form a line over there. If you're opposed, if you form a line over there. And we'll just toggle back and forth until everybody's had their say. And obviously, you've already spoken, up to 3 minutes. And then if it gets long, maybe less than that. Ms. Bank.
Kate Banks, 8 Pilots Hill. I'm in favor of this fishing pier. As Ralph said, I was on the site visit. We did look at a number of different places. This is a great place for a fishing pier if the city decides to accept this kind of